dismantle the RCMP. Is it time for a policing revolution in Canada? Too big to succeed? The argument for replacing the RCMP on the chopping block, public accountability at stake. A paramilitary problem, scrutinizing the RCMP's culture and power. Defenders of the Mounties. Is the RCMP's global respect at risk? The case against the RCMP. Is decentralization the future of Canadian law enforcement? Not just a force, a national institution. The fight to save the RCMP. Crossing lines. Does the RCMP's national reach justify its existence? The RCMP, Trudeau's alleged private militia, and the outcry for reform. Reimagining Canadian policing beyond the RCMP's storied legacy.
Welcome to TFI Global, the antidote to mass delusion.
There have been calls to abolish the RCMP and replace it with a regular police force on the lines of the American or Indian police system. Proponents of this change argue that the RCMP is too large and centralized, and that it is not accountable to the public. They also argue that the RCMP's paramilitary culture has led to abuses of power. Opponents of abolishing the RCMP argue that it is an effective and efficient police force that is well respected around the world. They also argue that the RCMP's national mandate is important, as it allows the force to investigate crimes that cross provincial and territorial borders. The Canadian government has stated that it has no plans to abolish the RCMP. However, the government has made some changes to the RCMP in recent years in an effort to address concerns about its accountability and culture. But will Canada continue with the current RCMP once Trudeau is voted out of power? The criticisms leveled at Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government with respect to the alleged utilization of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, reflect a convergence of governance, accountability, and the role of national policing in democratic oversight. The opposition's accusations highlight several points of contention that merit analytical consideration. Firstly, the handling of the SNC-Lavalin affair, wherein the RCMP discontinued its investigation into alleged corporate corruption, has been seized upon by Trudeau's detractors to suggest political interference. The optics of law enforcement, ostensibly under the executive branch's influence, dropping such a high-profile case, do raise questions about the independence of prosecutorial decisions from political machinations. Secondly, the RCMP's response to anti-pipeline demonstrations has provoked criticism regarding the proportionality of law enforcement actions. Accusations of excessive force and seemingly arbitrary arrests during these protests suggest a potential overreach of police powers, possibly signaling a governmental stance against dissenting voices on environmental policies. Thirdly, concerns surrounding the RCMP's involvement in surveillance, particularly in conjunction with CSIS, touch upon the larger debates surrounding privacy rights and the surveillance state. The opposition's allegations of surveillance being used as a tool for political espionage injects a layer of mistrust in the government's intentions and the mechanisms of oversight purportedly guarding against such abuses. Moreover, the RCMP's criticized opacity adds to the narrative of an institution resistant to the democratic principles of transparency and public accountability. Without transparency, accusations of unaccountability gain traction, further eroding public trust in the National Police Service. Finally, the increased budgetary allocations to the RCMP under the Liberal government's tenure have fueled assertions that the Trudeau administration is potentially expanding its coercive capacities. This financial uptick could be interpreted as consolidating power in a way that could be used to intimidate political opposition, thereby challenging the normative boundaries of law enforcement in a democracy. The recent report by the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, NSICOP, on the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, raises significant concerns about the institution's ability to effectively manage the spectrum of national security and criminal threats facing Canada today. This critical analysis draws on multiple points highlighted in the Stark report, reflecting on the operational structure and the RCMP's current resource allocation. The RCMP's dual role in contract and federal policing is at the crux of the systemic challenges it faces. Contract policing, which involves routine law enforcement duties in various provinces and territories, has historically been a primary focus for the RCMP. However, This long-standing emphasis has precipitated a crisis of capability in handling severe national security and criminal threats, as the NSICOP report indicates. The report's findings suggest a misalignment between the RCMP's operational priorities and the evolving and increasingly sophisticated nature of threats such as foreign interference, organized crime, and questions about the strategic focus and resource allocation within the RCMP. While the committee's investigation, encompassing a considerable volume of documentation and senior RCMP interviews, provides transparency into these challenges, it also underscores a deficiency in strategic agility within the organization. It is imperative to examine whether the RCMP's historical predisposition towards contract policing has inadvertently led to an atrophy in the specialized skills and capacities required for federal-level investigations. The relationship between the RCMP and the federal government, particularly the public safety minister, is also brought to light. The report indicates a paucity of regular communication, which is troubling considering the RCMP's pivotal role in national security. The call for more regular reporting and clear directives is a step towards addressing the perceived opacity in the oversight and independence of the RCMP. Furthermore, the revelation that extremist and criminal organizations may have successfully infiltrated Canadian law enforcement is alarming. It indicates a vulnerability within the RCMP that could undermine its integrity and effectiveness. The NSICOP report's recommendation for a legislative overhaul to clarify police independence is notable. The RCMP's governance is ostensibly mired in ambiguity, which could hinder decisive action and accountability. Introducing clarity in the RCMP's mandate, akin to provisions governing Canada's intelligence agency, could provide the structural scaffolding needed for the force to redefine its strategic objectives and operational priorities. The committee's conclusion that the RCMP is under-resourced for its federal policing mandate contrasts starkly with the overall budget and staff numbers. The disparity between the allocation for federal policing and the total resources available to the RCMP suggests an incongruity in how resources are distributed in relation to operational demands. In summary, the NSICOP report serves as a clarion call for a thorough reassessment of the RCMP's operational framework, resourcing, and legislative underpinnings. It articulates a narrative of an organization at a crossroads, one where the historical and contemporary demands are in tension. Addressing the highlighted concerns with urgency and decisiveness is crucial for the RCMP to evolve into an organization capable of safeguarding Canada against the complex tapestry of threats it faces in the modern era. And again, we are back to the original argument: will RCMP stay or survive? I don't know about that, but I am sure that RCMP cannot survive in its current form.